growing up, I'm sure that most of us have been told by a family member, a loved one, do not associate with these people, or, you know, I don't want to see you with this and that person. And then later on, as young people, you're told, marry well, marry into a good family. And the question is there a good family? Is there a bad family? And can we beat the odds? And today we have Hassan, who is our guest, who has come from a long generation of pain in his family, but he has overcome all that, and he's going to share his story to see how he beat the odds. Welcome to Confessions, Hassan.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Kindly introduce yourself to our viewers. Let them know about you.
I wanted to say my name is Hassan, but you've already said it.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'll say it. My name is Hassan Hamza. Like you said, I come from a long line of pain, I call it. But in Arabic or in Islam, we say Alhamdulillah, which means praise to God.
Right.
I've been able to change it. I'm changing it from a long line of pain to a long line of passion, purpose, success.
Right.
Yes.
Can you now take us through that journey from where it started to where you are right now, so that our viewers can have an understanding and can have insight and see that, you know, just because you came from a line that seemingly seemed, you know, cast, doesn't mean that that has to be your story. It can end with you. You can create a new narrative moving forward. Now,
that's a good question, but I just want to ask if, do we have like 6 months or 1 year to talk about this? Because
I wish we had all the time, but we have to, you know, crash it down to 45 minutes.
Okay, so I'll try. My story started from, I think, my grandmother. When my grandmother died this year, March.
Oh, sorry about that.
Thank you. So I liked to sit down with her and hear from her, where did we come from? So my grandmother was born in Kitui in the early 1900s, and she grew up there as a young girl, the firstborn in a family of 5. Then her father died in a horrendous accident. She told me that one day, as her father was walking just by the roadside, a car came and he went into the bush to duck from the car, and the car followed him into the bush. And like people say he met his death or she met her death. My grandfather, that's my great grandfather, did not meet death, followed him.
Yeah.
You know. So my grandmother, after that, she remained with her mother, and later on her mother died. So my grandmother was left there to fend for her 4 other siblings. At a very young age, she was married off. That's in Africa, you know, that's what comes next. So
How old was she when she got married off?
You know, I once wrote a post and said she was 10 years. But when I was talking to my mom, she was not sure. But when I'm sure she was very young, let's say 10 to 15. Okay.
Because anyway, at that time, people used to get married at such an early age. And then the keeping of age and data at that time was not so important.
In fact, my grandmother didn't know the age she was, the year or date of birth. She would say, no, I was born when the year, the Mzungus or the Europeans, the colonialists, they were doing this and that. So she was very young at that when she was married. So she was married into this family as the fourth wife. The husband was a very, very old man. So what happened is my grandmother got children. She got 6 children, and 5 of them mysteriously died. Just one after the other. Only my mother survived.
What were the circumstances around their death?
You know, my grandmother comes from Kitui. And you know, when someone is married as the young wife or the last wife, she's still very young. So you'll find that the husband will spend most of the time with her. So I think from what I gathered from when we were talking is like the other wives didn't like it. So my grandmother tells me that at times, or most of the time, even the water, the remnants of the water that would remain after she washed her face and her children, the other wives, the co-wives will take it. So it's something like, we can say witchcraft or something like that.
Do you believe in witchcraft?
You know, that's two-sided question. If you believe, if I practice or I don't practice, but I believe it's there.
Do you believe that it's effective?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
So you would agree that probably, the other wives were using this to kill the other kids?
Yes, that's what I gathered from what she told me. Yes.
But all the other wives' children survived?
Yes, I later in the story I'll tell you, but we didn't delve so much about the other wives and what have you, because my grandmother at some point she left. So in all our lives we've stayed with our grandmother, my mother, just maybe going home, but we didn't go home to where she was married. And my grandfather died. So I don't know much about the other co-wives and their children. Yes.
So let's take it back to that place where the other wives would take the water. That's where you are at. Yes. And what did they used to do with it?
So what they used to do with it, I don't know exactly, but it's an area that witchcraft is practiced. So I'm sure they used to take it there. Yes. Yeah.
So the intention was to destroy her and remain with the one man and share that one man amongst the three of them.
I think so. I know you know my story very well, better than I know it. But I think that's what happened, because after they say results don't lie, because my grandmother started losing children. Only my mother survived. The other 5 of them, they will just die mysteriously, one after the other. In fact, there came a time, my mother told me this and my grandmother told me, there came a time that when the last child was dying, my grandmother was tired. You've buried 4 children. My grandmother was tired and my mother was sickly at that time. So my grandmother, she said in pain, buried this one too. Kama mzikeni huyu pia. You see. So I think that luckily the people that were there, they understood that it's her pain that was speaking. Yeah, and they didn't do that. Yes.
All right. So okay, continue with the story. So did you stay? At what point did your grandmother move from?
Okay, so when the last child died, when the last child was buried, she was over. No, the last child she moved with 2 children. That is my mother and her sister. She went back to her brothers because when life was unbearable at her husband's and with the co-wives, she went back to where she came from. Now the house that her father and her mother left, where she was born. Her brothers were staying there. So of course they say east or west home is best. So she went back there, but it did not work out. They do not welcome her back with open arms. So my grandmother told me she decided to walk to Nairobi because at that time she didn't have a job or something, food. So she decided, because everyone knows in Nairobi there are opportunities, she decided to walk to Nairobi.
And why do you think the brothers rejected her?
Why the brothers rejected her? At that time, you understand, the brothers were young. And because my grandmother is married at this place, there are goodies that will be coming from that time. You understand, maybe there'll be food at times, maybe when they need something for school or something at home. It is easy to go to the husband or to where my grandmother is married and get it there. But now when she comes back home and there is no food at home, that's when she comes, they'll see this an added problem. Yes. So and their situation, you can't blame them because their situation also was very, very difficult. Yes. So that's why I think it did not end well. My grandmother told me one of the brothers actually took firewood and hit her, that it broke her back.
Are you serious?
Yes.
Gosh, that's very sad.
Yes.
It's very unfortunate, actually. So now your grandmother decided to do the cow thing and walk from...
They say, no, but it's just here.
Just here.
It's just here.
She just decided Nairobi's here, I'll take a walk.
Yes.
And get to that land of opportunities.
Yeah. She had no option. So what she did is she started walking. Along the road, she met someone, or someone saw her. a truck driver carried her, a man. So I call this person not so good Samaritan, because there was something that, this is a woman with a child. There's something that he wanted from her. So he brought her to Nairobi, Mathare. And at that time, my grandmother tells me, this guy was very violent. He would beat her. And my grandmother would take it because she knew where she was coming from. But it got serious when one day the man hit now my mother, her daughter. And my grandmother couldn't take it anymore.
Yeah.
So she left. She went to Bahati and Jogoo Road. There, I think there were some relatives. They introduced her to a bar nearby. She started working as a waiter. She took my mom back home.
And just to go back a little bit, when your grandmother met this man, I can just see how we can say that probably even God was protecting her, because she was exposed, first of all, as a woman, walking with a child.
Yes.
And then, so the not so good Samaritan probably helped him in his way. But now to the extent that he started abusing your grandma.
Yeah.
And it's very impressive that your grandmother got the courage to leave that relationship.
Yes.
And it's so hard for people to leave abusive relationships. So I think that your grandmother was very wise.
Yes, she was wise and brave. Yeah, very brave.
All right, so now she moves from there.
Yeah, so she moved from there, and like I told you, she got a job at a bar. So she started working as a waiter. All this time, she took my mother back home. So she will get something, a little bit, a bit of money sent back home. But what used to happen is, because at that time also in Shags, in the up country, no one wanted an extra baggage, because they have their children, they want to feed them. So my mother also went through a very, very difficult time. In fact, getting food. She tells me at times she will get she'll be given food, and when the owners, like the mother of the children leaves, her host, the children will put dirt into the food, or take the food and in the ground and just step on it. So she will go. She went through a lot of difficulties in that in homesteads where she was hosted.
Yeah. And at that time, she was around how old?
From I think 5 to around 10 years. Yes.
So then, what happened?
So
progressively, what happened?
So what happened is, at around 10 years, when my grandmother, she would go back home. And when she found out that this is very difficult for her to bear, because you see, you are in Nairobi, you have only one child, you're going through difficulties in Nairobi, working as a waiter, the only money you get, you sent home, and your child is going through this, and the only child surviving. So what she did is, she brought my mother to Nairobi. And when she brought my mother to Nairobi, Nairobi, how Nairobi works. And I think my mother was around 16, she got pregnant. And the first child now, you are in Nairobi, you are young, your mother doesn't have a stable job, and then you have a child.
Maybe I can interject there, and I don't know if you've had a conversation with your mom pertaining how or why she got pregnant at that time. At that time you expect that you'd have gotten education.
Yes.
Or you would have gotten probably your mom to advise you on what to do and what not to do.
I've never. I think after this, I'll ask her. Maybe in the next interview.
Yeah.
I'll ask her. But we never. I've never asked her exactly what happened. But I understand she was taking a course, like a tailoring course, when this happened. And now, because of the pregnancy and the hardship, being a teenager, a first-time mom, she could not go continue with the tailoring course. And now she had to. She had to stop.
What was, maybe you've said you've not had that conversation, but do you think your grandmother was excited about it, or was she angry? What was her reaction?
At first, she told me when she heard, she was a bit, of course she would be angry. But then again, because she had lost 5 children, sorry, she was happy about it, because now the family is increasing, At least she had a reason now to work even harder. Now I think she got a better house for both of them. Yes.
All right, let's take a break, and then when we come back, we shall listen more into this informative conversation. Stay tuned to Confessions. We'll be right back.
Life is a journey, and we all have ups and downs, highs and lows, and celebrities are no exception.
Do you know I couldn't pay rent? Do you know there's a time I went 3 days without food? If you read my book, I ate Colgate for dinner.
On Coffee with Movie, we get up close and personal.
Nilizaliwa hivyo. Yes. Mimi sijawahi ona.
We have candid conversations that are inspiring.
Na acha nikwambie, mtu mmebarikiwa na mlikuwa nyote mko kwa line, mko kwa foleni. Huyu akibarikiwa si ametoka, bado foleni nasonga. Wewe ni next.
Humorous.
This is going to be the craziest interview ever.
And life-changing.
Success is value system and the legacy you leave.
Coffee with Movie, every Sunday at 8 p.m. only on TV 47.
Every muscle, every bone is our concern.
A lot of pressure with both your hands, you're going to collapse the infant's chest.
Any pain,
there you go. You can calm down.
Any discomfort, we have just the right doctor.
I'm a consultant breast surgeon.
I'm an emergency care specialist.
A chiropractor.
With just the right remedy.
Majority of patients will actually just require supportive treatment.
Join us on Body Garage every Wednesday at 8:30 p.m. because we care. How do you like your meals? Sweet and tasty, or spicy and savory? On the Throwdown, we bring you our chef of the day.
You can defy the odds, you know, if you come from what they call bad family, a caste family, it doesn't have to stay with you until you die. You can change that narrative. So you were telling us about your dad and how they met with your mother.
Yeah, so they met in a place called Babadogo, that is just next to Korogocho. Korogocho is a well-known slum in Kenya. So they just lived for a few years because my father was, what do we call a person that...
He's abusive.
He was abusive,
man.
thank you. My father was abusive. So they didn't last long in that marriage. So I was left with, we were left, the two of us, my elder brother and I, we were left with our mother. Later on, my mother was married to someone else. They got other children. So we are seven of us. Now what happened is, you know, you have children. Now my mother has 7 children. She has to provide for them. Because also the other man was there, but he wasn't like, his provision was not the best. So my mother started a business. She used to sell milk. And when she was selling milk, we used to go with her. At that time I was around from when I was age 9. We would walk from someone who knows from Korogocho, Babadogo, Kariobangi, all those slums up to Huruma, selling milk door to door. When I go to talk to young people in schools and in mentorship classes, and I tell them, you know, there are 2 bells that they love. The lunch bell and home bell if you are in a day school. So for me, when just the bell rang for going home, it was the time I wore a sad face. Because it was a time that I would go to sell milk with my younger brother at that time. I would sell milk door to door, a very long distance. We'll be coming home at like 11 at night. That's the time, because I'm coming from one direction, our mother is coming from another direction, our other brother is coming from another direction. Get home at that time, start cooking supper. You know, we have other children, younger siblings. My grandmother is there, like a family of 9, 7 children and mother and grandmother. That's the time we'll start cooking supper at 11. Supper, if it was If it's ready by 1, you are very lucky. But one of the things that I learned or I loved from my mother is that we went through these hardships. I remember there's a time my uncle and the wife had come to visit us. And my mother had bought githeri for 30 shillings and potatoes, waru, for 10 shillings. And that's what we ate, the 9 of us, plus my uncle and the wife.
Now, taking you back as a young child, you know, ideally a child is supposed to be protected and provided for by the parent. And at this time, you become, you take the shoes of a parent, and you have to go out there and hustle as well. What was your mental state at that time? What were the feelings that you used to feel when you would go through this? What did you feel about yourself? What did you feel about your mom? Without not looking back now, when you were just at that age.
To be honest, I hated myself, and I had a very low self-esteem because, you see, I didn't even have enough clothes. And the kids, because now I will go sell milk. Let's say the shirt that I wore yesterday and the day before, I will wear the same shirt and I'll go to sell milk. And I will look at my age mates playing football or playing with tires, what we used to call mfara. And I really hated myself. That's why I told you, when the bell rang for going home, I wore a sad face. I remember even in school I didn't have friends because I had a very, very low self-esteem. I would ask myself, why can I not live like the other kids? Why can I not enjoy life like they do? Yes.
And what did you feel towards your mother?
Towards my mother was my hero, my shiro, like they say, because I knew that we had to go sell this milk. And all through this, one of the things also that I learned or I love about my mother is that we never slept hungry. I will see in our neighborhood a family with a father, with a mother. The father is working. At times they will sleep hungry. Us, our house will be locked at times. I will come home from school and find our household items in the open air and our door locked, like with 2 or 3 padlocks. Most of the time we won't have clothes. My mother didn't buy clothes often. But one of the things that I loved about my mother, we never slept.
So there's no day at all that you blamed your mom for the circumstances that you're going through?
No, I don't remember. I never.
And your father?
My father, because they separated when I was very young, we had pictures, so I knew him. At times he would come. He was working at Kenya Breweries. So at times he would come. When he retired, he came, he took what they used to call the golden handshake or golden handshake. He came, he took it. He came at home, said hi, gave us a few coins, and then he left. Also because he's from the coast, at times we used to go with my elder brother. We used to go and visit him.
But the question is, what are your feelings towards your father? Being that your mom was the one who was bringing you up, did you have questions of, why is my father not here? Why was he a violent man? What were your feelings towards him?
Of course, when I was young, I felt resentment. I remember, I'll tell you a small story. When we were in class and the other children were talking about their fathers, I would have that feeling, why can I talk about my father? And when I told you, when he came to visit, that day I remember I was in school and I went home for lunch and I found him there. So I was late to go back to school. And so he had to escort me to school. And when we were talking, because he slapped me, I don't know what happened, but he slapped me. And I had tears stream from my eyes. And I ran to class so that when the others would ask me what I'm crying, or why I'm crying, I will say that my father has slapped me, so that I can just have that feeling of having a father. Why I'm crying, I will say that my father has
So your father goes,
so that I can just
is
have
not
that
with you.
feeling of
Yes.
having
Then the one time that he comes,
no.
You're late for school, and he has to drop you. And so your father goes,
Yes.
is not with you.
But when I was young, that day I was happy about the slap because I could tell the others I'm crying because so I had that. It was a confused feeling. I was happy about the slap because I could tell the others.
Did you grew up resenting him, but you would still see him and feel
Yeah.
proud to say that you
Yeah.
have a father. So
Yeah.
did you
Yeah.
you grew up
Very
with that transition? Did you heal from
but
that,
you
you
would
would still see him as
Yes,
something
I
that you proud to say that you
I
have a
healed.
father?
I healed from that. I remember
Did
one
that
time
transition? Did you heal from that, or?
when I was an adult, not long ago, we sat down. I wanted to talk to him because I love to talk to my mother, my grandmother. So I wanted to talk to him, know his part of the story, ask him question about his father and his childhood. But when I just sat down, like we are sitting with him, with you, you know, he's not a person that, he's not a talkative person. He's not a person that you can get information from. And I remember at that time I read a book about forgiveness. I just said inside of me, you know, I don't know why he did this. I don't know the challenges that he had growing up. And I don't know if he wouldn't have left if I would be the person that I am today. So it just inside of me, I just told myself, I forgive him.
Mm-hmm. Was it an issue for you growing up, knowing that your older brother and yourself were not from the same father?
In fact, in our home, not only my older brother. My older brother, there's my older brother, there's me, and then there's my younger siblings. That's 3 sets. Our fathers are different. But when you see us, when growing up, we didn't even, it's not a question, it's not even a thought that crossed our mind, because even though we lived in a house that laced with poverty, you know, we had love. Our grandmother was there. She brought us together. We grew up like children from the same father, from the same father and mother. We never at any given time, myself, even the others, we never at any given time look at the other and say, no, your father, or no, nothing. Yes.
All right. Did you have any, you know, in this society right now, and especially with the teenage pregnancies and everything that's going around in terms of, you know, diseases and things like that, was there a time when you felt, in your little understanding as a child, the dangers that were predisposed to, say, for example, you know, your mom having, you know, different partners and therefore different children?
You know, it's not something that I thought about it when I was young, but as an adult, when I look back in retrospect, or when I look back, you know, our neighbors were, you could see, you know, couples fight, because we used to live in house made of mud houses, matope or mabati, and you could, most of the time you could know what's happening in the other houses. What I can say is that my mother is a very strong woman, because of the children, she would have lived in or just stuck in a marriage that she was being abused, that the children are abused, that her dignity was not taken care of. But she decided for herself and for her children, whatever she goes through, she will go out of that marriage. So it's not a question of, you know, it's not a question of having maybe different people as husband. It's a question of yourself. You know, if it's not working, then you walk out. So it's something that I respect my mother for, and I've learned a lot from that.
And when it comes to, as you said, your neighbors, when it comes to the family, what was their perspective towards your family? Could you be able to tell if they were indifferent towards you and your family?
Yeah, of course, you know, like when a woman she has 7 children and is in the slums, you know, that means that one time or another you'll go to the shop to take something on credit, you'll go to this neighbor or to that neighbor, you know, so there were talks and we could hear them. You know, there are people that, you know, as an adult now I understand, you know, there's someone, because sorry to say, but my mom she is, and at a young age she was a very, very beautiful woman. So you could see that people wanted her, you know. So people will talk, you know, how will you raise 7 children? How will you do this? You know, so there were those talks, there were criticism, there was indifference towards us, but it's something that, because of we were a close-knit family, even though the challenges that we are going through, the lessons, the talks that we'll have, how we will see my grandmother and because we lived all our life, we've lived in my grandmother and my mother and us. My grandmother was always there, and she will talk to us. You know, we used to see how our mother was struggling to feed us, to take us to school. You know, she won't rain or sunshine. Every day she woke up very early. She slept very late. She made sure that every day we had something. We had a warm plate at home. So anything that was said by the neighbors, you know, it had no footing on us. No, nothing.
So you didn't feel bad that neighbors were talking badly maybe about you or your family or your mom?
Of course, as a child, you will feel bad. As a child, you will feel bad, but there's nothing we could do about it. You know, always in life, there is two sides, because there is the neighbors talking badly, and then there is our life. And there's a way you see your mother, what she's doing.
Mm-hmm. Now, I want to understand it not now as someone who can filter what is happening around, and because you have knowledge of so much, but you know, the young Hassan at that time, what was going through your mind at that time?
So you're asking when the neighbors were talking?
Yeah, when the family, the neighbors.
Of course you will feel bad. Of course you will feel bad. Of course, like for example, you know, like this, I gave you an example, like a shopkeeper knows that, like let me give you an example. One time my mother used to have a small kiosk, what we call kibandaski. She was selling chapati and madodo and rice. And then there was a person that had given something on credit, and it was long overdue. He would come every time, ask for the money. My mother didn't have it. Ask for the money every time. My mother didn't have it. Then one time he came, and my mother didn't have the money as usual, and he said, "Hiyo nimekuachia, hiyo ni kama kungoja Bwana Yesu." It's like now waiting for Jesus to come back. Of course, as a child, what happened that day, myself, I've never told anyone this. Myself, inside of me, myself, I said, one day, my mother, she won't have to be told something like this. One day I'll become a man and I'll work hard. I'll provide for her everything that she wants. And I didn't like going to the shopkeepers to get some, because they will say, you know, so many people are there waiting to buy, and then you come to get something on credit, and they say, you don't pay. So you feel that pain. I was one of those kids that when you are told, you are sent to go and take something on credit, I felt so bad. I didn't want to go. Sometimes I would even send my younger siblings. Of course, I didn't like it. Yeah.
All right, we'll go back. We'll go on a short break, and then when we come back, we'll continue the conversation. Stay tuned to Confessions. We'll be right back.
Life is a journey, and we all have ups and downs, highs and lows, and celebrities are no exception.
Do you know I couldn't pay rent? Do you know there's a time I went 3 days without food? If you read my book, I ate Colgate for dinner.
On Coffee with Movie, we get up close and personal.
Nilizaliwa hivyo. Yes. Mimi sijawahi ona.
We have candid conversations that are inspiring.
Na acha nikwambie, mtu amebarikiwa na mlikuwa nyote mko kwa line, mko kwa foleni. Huyu akibarikiwa si ametoka, bado foleni nasonga. Wewe ni next.
Humorous.
This is going to be the craziest interview ever.
And life-changing.
Success is value system and the legacy you leave.
Coffee with Movie, every Sunday at 8 p.m. only on TV 47.
Every muscle, every bone is our concern.
A lot of pressure with both your hands, you're going to collapse the infant's chest.
Any pain.
There you go. You can calm down.
Any discomfort. We have
Welcome back to Confessions. Hassan was telling us about how he felt very uncomfortable taking, you know, credit and kuchukua madeni kwa shops. Yeah. So you somehow figured your way around it. You'd use your siblings.
Yeah, I will sometimes send them, but you know, at times like the Swahili say, lisilona budi utendo. I will go, but it's something that I used to hate. Yeah. But inside of myself, I was telling myself, one day, my mom, the house won't be locked. One day, you won't take things on credit. One day, like, she was struggling to pay my school fees, and I would say, I would see her struggle to pay my siblings' school fees. I would say, one day you won't struggle to pay this school fees. So it was just a dream. One day, I'll do something about it.
All right. Now take us through your journey, your school life, and how you managed to actually go to school.
Of course, now my mother, I say her love for education was always in conflict with her empty pockets, because she loved education. In fact, all of us, my mother did her best to make sure that we went to school, even when she didn't have anything. I went to Ngunyumu Primary School. It's in Korogocho, and it was very, 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 very cheap at that time. But I remember the only year that I went to school, that I was not sent home for school fees, was in 2003. That year I was in class 8. And I was not sent home for school fees because Kibaki had become the president, and he made primary education free, not even affordable, free. So that's the only year in primary school I was not sent home for school fees. Yeah, I performed averagely because I didn't have time even after school to go and do my homework, to study. Always selling milk immediately after the last bell. At times in the morning before school, I will go to sell milk or sell other products my mother, like ngwashe, sweet potatoes. So I'll go to school late, leave straight to selling milk. So it was very difficult period for me. But when I finished high school, out of 500, I got to 50.
Primary, when you finished primary?
Primary. Out of 500, I got 250, just in the middle.
Yeah.
But my mother she had an urge, or a passion for education. Herself, she went up to class 7. So she decided that I have to go to high school. My brother was saying, no, you have to repeat. But my mother said no. So we started looking for a high school to go. When you just finished high school, you see your friends have gone to this school, your friends have gone to that school. So you want to go to these schools. So what happened is my mother was looking for a school that she could afford. Yeah. So she took me to a school. My friends were going, because that is in Korogocho. I studied primary in Korogocho. And when now it's time for high school, I'm seeing my friends going this direction, out of Korogocho to town, to other places, to better schools. And my mother, she had bought me the uniform. She didn't tell me where we were going. And then she took my hand, and she was taking me the opposite direction to inside of Korogocho, and say the intestines of Korogocho. And then I was wondering where we are going. When we got there, we found, I entered a class, and there were only 4 students. I was the 5th one.
What was your feeling then?
I was feeling, where are you taking me? My best friend at that time, up to date, his name was Gabriel. I wanted to go to the school that Gabriel went to. So where are you taking me? What is this? Where are we going? I felt so bad. Honestly.
At that point, did you blame your mother, or did you blame
Of course I did. Of course I did. Yeah. I did. Where are you taking me, mom? Of course, even before, leave alone the school. There was a shoe that my mom had bought me in class 6. And I wore it up to class 8. When I finished class 8, when I was going to high school with the new uniform, my mom wanted me to wear that shoe. In fact, we were stopped she had just bought the uniform. One of our friends told her no. We just met on the road. She told her no, you have to buy a new pair of shoes. I don't know where she got the money. We went and she bought me shoes. That was the last pair she bought me in Form 1. That was the last pair up to date. But honestly, at that time, I felt so bad. I felt so bad.
Okay, but did you decide to stay on board the school and stay even if you didn't like it? Or did you drop out?
They say don't judge a book by its cover. This school turned out to be, our teachers were very, very good. There were graduate teachers. It was a missionary school. Even though it was in the heart of Korogocho, somewhere, even if you cannot find on the map, we had very, very good teachers, and they did their best. In fact, I don't know if he ever sees this, Mr. Nderito, I want to thank him, our principal. He was a very, very, very hardworking man. He was very good with us. He made sure that our school, in fact, in that locality, it was one of the best schools.
Right.
Yeah. I didn't tell you about the amount that we used to pay.
How much?
2,500 shillings a term.
What?
Yes.
That's like pocket money for some students.
If I had 40,000 shillings, I would have learned the whole 4 years.
Yeah.
But even being 2,500 shillings, every day the teacher would say, tomorrow I'll be sending people home who had not finished their arrears, paid the school fees. I will be ready with my bag, because I knew there is no way my mother would have paid that school fees on time. Yeah.
You're just making me think how, people take advantage of some of the opportunities and access to things that they have. Yeah. And now hearing your story and just hearing the fact that, school fees was 2,500, but even that was not even affordable. It
sounds like a joke.
It sounds very, it just shows me the height of poverty in our country. Yeah. That and some of these matters that are not being addressed, and with everything that's ongoing even right now, and students being home and students being forced to go back to school, some of them, and parents have not had to work for a while. So it just made me reflect on the situation that's happening right now. So then you went through high school. How did you finish, with high grades, or what was that?
I got a seaplane. Remember, I used to sell milk after school. Our school didn't have like a lab. We didn't have a Bunsen burner. We saw it, I think, in Form 3 or Form 4. So I got a seaplane, of which I think it was a good grade at that time. But my teachers, they will tell me, I remember Mr. Muli, his name was Mr. Muli, one of our teachers. He will always tell me, Hassan, you have what it takes to become the best candidate in this school, the best student in this school. You just have to work hard. At that time, of course, I didn't take his words strongly like I should have, or seriously like I should have. But we did well. In fact, when I finished high school, I told you about the fees. I finished, I got a seaplane. I couldn't get my living certificate because my mother had 12,000 shillings arrears. So the teacher wrote a note, said, I confirmed that Hassan Hamza was a student in this school. He cannot be given the certificate because he has 12,000 arrears. So that and they stamped it, Korogocho Glory Secondary School. So when I went to look for, at that time, a casual labor somewhere, a job, or when I went to look for an opportunity to go to college, that's what I used to present.
All right. So after that, did you enroll for college, or what did you do after high school?
So what happened, I told you that was in Korogocho, and Korogocho is known for crime and drugs and vices, so many vices. So what happened is I got into something called Youth Serving Organization, CBO, community-based organization. So I used to be an actor. We used to dance with drums and entertain people, get something small out of it. So this is what I used to do. I remember my first salary, I was paid as an actor, 8,000 shillings, and I bought a mattress. And wow. So this is what happened. So I became involved in the community. An organization came, and because we were in the community, I got a sponsorship, and I went to college. It's called Unity College. I did community development and social work.
Did they ask for the certificate from high school?
They didn't. Okay. Actually, up to now, I've not taken the certificate because I've never needed it.
Wow, really? So now you answer my question.
Yeah,
I asked you that if you went back for the certificate.
Yes, I've never needed it. There's a time I went to look for it. I found there's a new principal. I didn't know where it was, and then I think I gave up or something. I've never even thought about it.
Right.
Now, okay, so I went to college. Then a few years later, I was in the community. Now, I came from, when I started, I was just in a small youth group in our village. I started building networks until I got to a national youth organization that will have people from Netherlands coming to train us.
Wow, that's fantastic. I mean, could you have imagined yourself from where you came from to now sitting with the who's in the international, aspect or spectrum?
It's something that, it's not fathomable at that time for you, for you to think that I could come this far. In fact, also because I came from the slums, and at times when you are going through hardship, you don't know it's a lesson on itself. Because when we were in these meetings, I would speak and everyone would listen, like they used to respect me, And these people, most of them were from universities, the best universities in Kenya, but they used to respect me. I was one of those people that when I gave an opinion, it won't be taken lightly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There are many people who have also walked the same road that you have had almost similar experiences, but they don't turn out like you have. Yeah. They don't, turn their life into a positive, something positive that people can respect and admire. Yeah. What do you feel is the difference between what you did and what somebody else who turned to crime and drugs, what do you think is the difference?
There's so many answers to this question, but to answer it in a nutshell, one is don't give up. Number two, service. So many people, a lot of us are, what can I get? What's in this glass for me? But so many people don't ask, what can I give? When I got into these youth serving organizations, I started serving the community. Most of the time we will go to meetings, we'll do a lot of things, volunteer in the community. We didn't get anything. And even my friends, I remember one of my friends was asking me, this is what you are doing. Do you think it will help you? Because he was doing a business. I remember he was selling underwears. At that time we called them underwears. Now we call them panties. He used to sell underwear. So he'll ask me, start a business. Come, let me teach you this business. What you are doing, will it help you? So I think one of the things that has really shaped my life after that is, after God, my grandmother, my mother, is that service. Yeah. And I learned a lot also from my mom. I learned a lot from my mom. And then also my brother, my elder brother that I talked about, he slipped on the way. Something happened, he was taken to prison, and I did not want to end up like him. I didn't want to end up like the other young people that I used to see in our locality. So I wanted things differently. And little by little, I started doing things differently. And they got me where I am today. All
right. So people say that some families are cursed, or hii family inakuanga hivi. Yes. But is that really a fact, or is it a decision? It's just a decision away from changing what is happening in the family. What do you think?
You can, like I say, like in my story, I say I come from a long line of pain, or you can say caste generation or something like that. But I think we all have the power in our hands to change our future. I believe we have the power in our hands, just in what you do, in what you put into your mind every day. Because many people, they sit down and say, oh, my father was this, my grandmother was this, and then they don't want to change. But if you look at yourself, I say, look at yourself as not what you are, but as what you can be. Exactly. And then start working towards that. Mm-hmm. You see, there's a time, I'm sure, you didn't know you could sit down and do what you're doing today. Mm-hmm. Sitting in front of these cameras and asking the questions is not easy. Mm-hmm. Our brother and sister here doing the camera, there's a time they couldn't do that. Mm-hmm. But if you want to change, you have to, there's a phrase I say, every day you have to go to the biggest room in the world. And the biggest room in the world is the room for improvement.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for, coming on to Confessions and sharing your story with us. There's plenty of people out there who think that just because my family is like this, I'm destined to be like this. You have your own journey, you have your own personal journey to take, and you are able and capable to transform your life and make it better. And if you come from very good background, you can maintain it just by making different choices.